to pin, boom. Really? There we go. Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome. Welcome. We are we're officially live here on YouTube, and you are attending our used car marketing webcasts. Webcasts that we do every month. Pretty much the first Thursday of every month, sometimes the second Thursday of every month. And our focus really is on the big picture of the used car business. And today, what I have lined up is pretty much a brief conversation around the investment potential of the used car business. So there are some publicly traded companies. There's some large players entering this used car space, and it's definitely transforming and having an effect on things. Now, we have Gary Wade on here, joining me here as well. So Gary, let's make sure I can get your camera rolling. All right, you're looking good. I'll unpin mine. So Gary Wade, folks. Now, Gary is a retired automotive executive. Gary, you've been in the business, what, 30-ish years?
About 38 years, yeah.
Yeah, 38 years. So,
retired 2 years ago.
So almost no one better to have here to provide commentary. So I'm Ryan Girardi. It is Thursday, March 14th. Thanks again. We do record this. We release it onto the AutoConverse podcast, and we feature it on autoconverse.com as well. You can watch live here on YouTube. You can also go over to autoconversion.net, look under watch pages, and look for auto retail webcasts, and you can watch on our website, and I'll be checking in there as well. So consider it on demand. So Gary, now you were not on the last session. We had Ed French, Jason Rice was on there, Aaron Gomez, and that conversation centered around the acquisition strategies of Carvana, who had just kind of come out recently with this campaign blitz that they will now buy your car. And so what we got into was, what is that? What kind of strategic play is that? Are they nipping at the heels of CarMax? And, should dealers feel any pressure? Should there be a sense of urgency with that tactic? So kind of building on that, why don't you give us your basic commentary? These major players that are entering the space, is it indeed increasing the pressure on traditional franchise dealerships as it pertains to the used car business?
I think it's putting a lot of pressure on, and that Carvana has stepped into the immediate public purchasing arena that a lot of dealers have been in for quite a few years. And that was something that I kind of specialized in the last 7-8 years of my career, was acquisitions from the public and working with a group, that moderate sized group, 20 stores, and setting up buying center and running that end of the business for them. With Carvana stepping into it, like CarMax and some of the other big dealer groups now that are jumping into this, it's really putting a squeeze on anyone that has been a small time player. I mean, this is just another thing where you're going to see a lot of small dealers, 1, 2, 3s that are in larger metropolitan areas get bought up, I think. And you're going to see that a lot of your really good family owned stores that have been solid with manufacturers for a long time, this is going to cause them to get gobbled up. And you're still going to see your smaller rural dealers, or your smaller, one dealer that's not a great performing dealer, or a dealer that isn't in a large metropolitan area, survive by the skin of their teeth if they can. But I think your very good performing dealers. We have an example of it here in the Twin Cities just recently. The two Lexus dealers and one of the Chevrolet dealers were owned by the Bloomer family here, and a large dealer group out of Chicago that has, I believe, 30 some stores down in the Chicago area, just grabbed up. And these were two of the original Lexus dealers in the country, very, very well performing dealerships. And they've been a Chevy dealer for 70 years, the Bloomer family, and they got grabbed up the Village Automotive Group, got bought out, and probably because they're in a major metropolitan area, had great success with Lexus, and were a great performing dealer. So once again, like you said, the investment into these dealerships from the outside sources and from the big, eating up the new, and with Carvana and CarMax on the used car end, I think you're going to see, regionally, if you have a good, solid used car performing group, or a used car performing point. I mean, we have a couple of them here in the Twin Cities that are just used car dealers that do very big volume. I think you're going to see those guys get offers on the table that maybe they can't refuse.
So one of the advantages that CarMax has in its acquisition business is basically they have their own intra auction, wholesale business. So when you talk about a group, and I don't know the group that you mentioned in the Chicago area that acquired these two local dealerships up in your area, you're in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Does that also have a strategic play for the group regionally with their wholesale business and with their acquisitions and trades? They give them that same advantage, I guess.
Yeah, I would say anytime you have a dealership that grows in volume as far as rooftops, their opportunity to move vehicles from one location to the other to maximize where the market conditions are, for specific makes and models, and also opens up different regions. Now they're from Chicago moving into the Minneapolis market. You're moving into two completely different wholesale markets. You can move inventory up into this other market. And there are times where the Minneapolis Auto Auction and Odessa up here, the Mannheim Auto Auctions, there's two of them up here, will be some of the top performing results on a lot of vehicles in the country as far as price wise. And for years, a lot of the factories sent certain models up into here because they know they were going to get top dollars here, especially right now, this time of the year. All this northern region, the wholesale markets in this area draw from North and South Dakota, the Minnesota, Wisconsin, Iowa. Majority of your dealers that come to the auction or come into the auction electronically are really looking to boost their inventories this time of year as we go into the spring market. So it's a boom market up here right now as far as used cars.
So I don't know if you have any thoughts on this, but it looks like Carvana only has about a dozen vending machine locations across the country. That doesn't seem like a lot. Ed last month went through some of their numbers. It's no secret that Carvana is not profiting. They're 5 years in, not profiting. Now, their stock peaked last year, about late spring, early summer. Their stock peaked, went way down over the next few months. Now, just over the past couple of weeks, it popped up. But before I get into what's making it pop, doesn't it seem like Carvana needs more locations? What's keeping them from? Are they growing fast enough?
Well, I think the vending machines are kind of a novel thing.
Yeah, because it's not a parking lot of cars.
Yeah. I think the reality is Carvana's spending on advertising, just like CarMax did about 4 or 5 years ago, in a huge way, ramped up their spending in advertising here in the Midwest as they expanded into stores here in the Midwest. We saw a great influx I know here in the Twin Cities, they built 2 and they planned for 3 stores very quickly, and they spent unbelievable amount of money into this media market before they even got close to breaking ground to bring brand awareness and everything else. And I think Carvana is doing an amazing job on bringing that same brand awareness ahead of time. Whether they'll ever put a vending machine up here, I don't know, but they'll probably have a regional sales office that would buy and deliver cars, I think, very soon, if not already. So it's something that I think you'll see more of that expansion, where they're going to have their buying centers and their retailing offices. I mean, their whole marketing model is not anything brick and mortar. It's all online, and you're going to see more and more of that.
I would liken it to Amazon in the sense that like you said, the vending machine itself is just for show. It's a pretty economical way to physically say to that area, "Hey, Carvana is here." I would think as a consumer, if you're not seeing Carvana, if you're not seeing the vending machines, you would assume that Carvana is not in your area. But there's really, even though they only have 11 vending machines, they can reach farther than those 11 places, is what you're saying. I think your point about their advertising is a huge advantage. From a consumer standpoint, they can create, brand recognition nationally with consumers. And we definitely live in this big box era, like you were talking about a minute ago, that the bigger brands are going to buy up the smaller ones. And maybe psychologically that does work well for today's consumer. They want to buy from a brand they're already familiar with.
Yeah, I think that you look at, AutoNation is not at any individual locations, something that's a huge used car brand. They're more a new car brand as far as that, but just because of sheer volume of rooftops, they do a lot of used car volume. But I think if you ask people that buy from AutoNation, they look at AutoNation as a big brand. Same thing with CarMax, being an only a used car brand. They are the king of it, though. They what is their volume? About 700,000 vehicles a year.
CarMax is
CarMax,
yeah. I think you're right on target there.
And with that type of volume, overall, you look at it. I just read something recently that says that the used cars changeover sales annually is about 40 million right now. So it's about, what is that, 2% or just under 2% of the used car volume nationally. But everything else that goes along with the sale, obviously, the financing, the repair, and then they have a huge wholesale, their own auction, like you mentioned, and everything else. And you're going to see these big juggernauts. Every one of them is going to be going that way. You're even seeing some pretty large dealer groups go that way,
right?
Having their own auctions. And
to me, when you think about the used car business, again, it's not right. It's not just the cars. There's a lot of the ancillary stuff around it. There's financing, right? There's maintenance, there's parts and repair. I'll go back to acquisition. Acquisition is the one thing that we have the data and the tools to acquire the right way, to dispose of vehicles, and all in a profitable way. And it just seems like the larger that your network is, that's your proprietary wholesale network, that is a huge competitive advantage compared to, the single stores, the 2 or 3 groups that are still dependent on the physical auctions.
Yeah, the dealers that are aligned, not just within their own group, but there's many now that are 8, 9 smaller 10 to 12 store groups that are coming together as a under one guidance. I would say that the dealer principals have banded together to put together their buying power, to put together their investment power, to put together the funding for real estate, and everything in that aspect. And when you look at those alliances more than dealer groups, you would say, and how they can wholesale amongst themselves or buy from amongst themselves, and the platforms that are available for the dealer to dealer wholesaling that's available in today's markets, that's being used and not just by individual groups, but also by major groups. And now the major auction groups are getting involved with them too. It's made a big difference, difference I can see. You can get cars much quicker. You can get cars at a better cost advantage, bring them in on your acquisition, have better condition reports, have the functionality of much more knowledge on the car as far as when you're making your buying or bidding decision on screen, and able to use it in a much more timely basis and in a much more in-depth basis than making a snap decision in a physical lane, and trying to do the research a day or two ahead of time on cars that you're trying to chase through the old style brick and mortar lanes. Where today, the big buying groups like CarMax set up war rooms, and they have people that do the investigation, the pricing, and set it up, and then they have people that do the input on the proxy bidding and on the bidding on auctions, and then you have people watching the auctions themselves from a war room and somebody overseeing them to make the ultimate decision to move or not out of the guide. If you're going to play in a big boys world, you got to do it right, I guess.
Do you see, speaking specifically to Carvana's acquisition from consumers, that's what their big push is right now. Do you see them at a higher risk, considering they're willing to offer a price, based off the report, versus having, say, a certified mechanic truly inspect that vehicle?
I think that they can still have a pretty good off the license plate, we call the license plate type of inspection, where you do all the research, you run it through what software you have to do histories and do market evaluations, V-auto evaluations, things of that sort. But they still have an out. I mean, the people have to represent the vehicle correctly in their condition report that they do.
Right. They're not obligated to it.
Yeah. So when the pickup inspector goes and takes a look at it, if someone has misrepresented the vehicle, obviously it's not going to happen at the number that they had said. But I would think that like a majority of the dealers that I dealt with that were working in this acquisition from the public, that you would give people a real good ballpark, and they would want to hold your feet to the fire. And if you said, hey, send me a real good couple pictures of your vehicles, send me information, give me the VIN number, the miles, you pull all the history on the vehicle. I mean, our friend David Long with Nilo is a perfect example. He could give somebody, because out in Northern California, because of the time crunch people are in there and their lifestyles, he could give people a really good estimate on what the car was going to be. And unless something, when they did do their inspection, was way off, they were pretty close to what they had talked about. So I don't think that what Carvana is doing is reinventing the wheel there. I think it's something that they're just kind of fine tuning.
No. And I guess your response is they're not taking too much of a risk with the way that they're doing it.
Not at all.
Okay. Two more questions. The first one, not so much a question, but Carvana's I mentioned a minute ago that Carvana's stock has kind of popped, if you will, over the past couple of weeks. And I did a little investigation as to why, because, the word on the street is, hey, they're not profiting, right? They're spending a ton on advertising. Um, so what's causing it to pop? And what it looks like is, and I didn't know this, but I think Carvana does. I mean, it has underwriting to put people in cars, but it's still tied to those loans. And I don't know what you know about Carvana's financing, but it sounds like they might be able to sell off some of those asset-backed securities, and that's a good sign. It sounds like someone might want to acquire those, not someone, but investors, and take that out of Carvana, kind of take that off Carvana's plate. And that seems to be what's causing their stock prices to go up, at least right now.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what they're referencing as asset-backed securities, but I would just assume, and if it's correct, that what you're saying is that their in-house financing, being asset-backed by the car itself on the loan package. If that's true, it'd be great for them to shed that kind of debt and free up a lot of that capital that they acquired in their IPO and some of their bond sales, that they could free back up to use as working capital once again for either new business as they grow. I mean, they want, they talk about they want to go from 100,000 vehicles to 2 million vehicles, in a couple of years. And the only way that's the only way that could happen is with huge amounts of capital available.
Right. Yeah.
Expansion, growth, acquisition of inventory. To sell 2 million vehicles a year. I mean, come on, that's more than twice, almost 3 times what CarMax is selling.
Sure. It's pretty aggressive. It might just be rhetoric.
Yeah.
Do you think that Carvana's, I don't know, the pressure is really mounting to get profitable? I mean, Amazon said not to be profitable after all these years. So it seems to me like they still have plenty of time. As long as they keep getting backed, they've got plenty of time to figure this out, or at least grow.
It's all going to be based on growth. I mean, if they can show that they aren't profitable because everything's being reinvested in growth, I mean, that's Amazon. I mean, they have huge growth annually. And with that, you look at what they've been able to do. If Carvana is able to show growth that is worth it, it's doing business. It's you aren't just spending money to spend money, but you're expanding your markets, and you're doing it in a good way where you're taking market share. I mean, you're moving into markets and you're gaining market share, and you're gaining brand awareness, and this acquisition push that they're doing, if they're able to bring the inventory in that gives them the lift to go into some more volume in both retail and wholesale, I mean, then it's worth it.
So as long as they're growing market share, then they're going to be fine. And I think you just attributed that to, a part of it is how they're going to source these cars and finance them, and then their advertising strategy. So got 1 minute here. Final word here. Just, got a large dealer audience that we target this webcast for, speaking to the traditional franchise dealer. Okay. The mom and pop, or the 5-store auto group. What would be some advice that you could offer them for the year 2019 as it pertains to their used car business and being profitable?
Really watch your inventory as far as what the market's doing, as far as don't worry about day aging and calendar aging. Worry about market compression and market aging. If your market moves on you, you have to be ready to move the vehicles and move the money out. But on the other hand, if the market moves and a vehicle becomes something that is really hot in the market, don't shortcut yourself either, because the car's 30 or 45 days. If all of a sudden a vehicle for some reason has a market change because of news or because of weather or something seasonally, and you own one, just because it's 45 days, don't give it away, but make it so it's on the market price and sell it tomorrow.
And that's right in tune with Dale Pollock's message is you got to know there's a ripe moment for every vehicle. It has nothing to do with its age. It has to do with the market, and what you've put into it also is a factor too.
One of the smartest guys that I see in the automobile business, with his information, and I follow him on every blog and every website I can, and even being retired, to try to stay up with the business. Very intelligent man.
Absolutely. He's known for that. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being here and talking with me about this.
Thank you.
So folks, I'm sharing my screen here, and we're going to go ahead and wind down. If we do this every month, either the first or second Thursday, you can tune in live from the Auto Conversion YouTube channel. So go to autoconversion.net, look for the YouTube icon and subscribe. That way you're notified. Be sure to press on that bell icon so that you get notified. If you can't attend the live session, that's fine. You can watch it later. That's the beauty of it. It's on demand. And then we also release it to the Auto Converse podcast. So go to autoconverse.com, look for the podcast. Now, what I recommend is you sign up here with this series, and that way we can notify you via email every time we schedule a new event within the series, and you'll be the first one to see, to have the preview delivered to you once we release it. So we release it on the podcast and up on the Auto Converse blog. Look under opinion, look for auto retail, and you'll see some of these sessions that are up there. So thanks again. I'm Ryan Girardi here again, Used Car Marketing monthly webcast. Enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to go ahead and shut off, and we'll see you same time, same place next month. Thanks, everyone.